When I was 22, I went on a trip to France with my closest friends. It was a good trip. And then I came home and somehow spent the next 5 years almost completely alone. No meetups, no calls, and barely a few texts. And the thing is, it's not like I decided to cut myself off from everyone. It just sort of happened. And by the time I realized, too much time had passed and it was too late for me to go back. At least, that's what I told myself. And maybe something similar has happened to you too. Maybe it wasn't necessarily friendships, maybe it was your career, or just your life in general. You looked up one day and realized that your life looked nothing like you initially imagined. Hey there, I'm Paolo. I make videos about confidence, good habits, and living life with more intention. So, what basically happened after France was that I took a break, to recharge. Then September came around and everyone was busy restarting their normal lives. Then I wanted to focus on my new projects. Then it was, I don't know, too cold or too rainy to go outside. Then my friends slowly started to hang out without me. And then, when I saw their photos and videos on Instagram, I concluded that I was too far behind and I needed to get some kind of success before being allowed to show my face again. You get the idea, it was just one thing after the other until suddenly 5 years had gone by. That is what sliding looks like. And it's really insidious because technically you are making decisions the whole time, but you are just choosing the easiest option. You are always choosing the path of least resistance without ever really stopping to ask if that's what you actually want. Now, why does that happen? Well, because sliding is easy, while making real decisions, especially ones that have a big effect on your life, is definitely not easy. Because it means being honest about the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and taking responsibility for closing that gap. And usually that means getting uncomfortable and making changes that you've been procrastinating for who knows how long. So most people would rather just not. And this, of course, doesn't only happen with friendships. You can slide into an unfulfilling job after college, or a romantic relationship that doesn't excite you, or a routine so boring that you might as well be in a time loop. Not because you really chose any of it, just because at some point that was your life. And changing direction at that point felt too difficult. I should know because that's exactly how I went from that trip to France with my closest friends to waking up 5 years later with basically nothing to show for it. Like, my blogging career was so unsuccessful that it could barely consider a hobby, let alone a career. I hadn't developed any marketable skill, my confidence was at an all time low, and socially, I had basically stopped existing for my friends. Not because they didn't like me, but because, whether I wanted it or not, I had removed myself so completely that nobody even thought to invite me to things anymore. And the easiest thing for me to do would have been to keep sliding deeper and deeper into it. Well, I'm glad I didn't. It was around 2 years ago when I started to repeatedly ask myself a question, which I actually already asked myself many times before that, but never really bothered to answer. Anyway, the question was, is this really how I want my life to continue? And it actually took me a few tries and a couple of weeks, but eventually I was able to convincingly say, hell no. So I made a life changing decision and texted my old friends to ask if they wanted to grab a burger together. That's it. Just a simple burger dinner, nothing crazy. But without that one decision, I would still be hiding in my room and too afraid to get out of my comfort zone and sliding into whatever life I would have slid into, while telling myself that I needed to be good enough first. So, if you're feeling like your life is nothing like you imagined to be and that it's too hard to change now, please know this. You can do it, but you need to stop sliding and start deciding. And the best way to start is by having what's called a DTR moment, which in dating means define the relationship. It's that conversation that all couples should have but don't, where you stop and ask yourselves and the partner where things are actually going. To prevent yourself from sliding from a casual relationship to a serious one, to living together, to getting engaged, getting married, and having kids, all because you were just used to each other's presence and never really stopped to consider things and decide whether that's what you really wanted. Well, you can apply the same DTR idea to everything in life. It's just an opportunity to stop and see whether the direction your life is taking is the one you actually want. Like the burger dinner I just told you about, that was a DTR moment. That was small, but that completely changed the trajectory of my life. So I absolutely recommend having regular DTR moments with yourself, starting today, not tomorrow, today, using a question similar to the one I showed you before, and that I still use at least once a month, sometimes more, which is, what kind of life are my current habits pointing towards? Answer honestly, and you'll know exactly whether you are deciding or just sliding. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this useful. And if you're interested, I also have a free guide with my favorite questions to change your life. You can find it in the description. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.